1 year ago Rift Apart came out. At the time when it got released, I didn't own PS5 and let me tell you, trying to avoid the spoilers like hell was absolutely hard, especially with certain YouTubers blasting all the fucking key moments and bosses in their thumbnails. Like, seriously guys, this isn't funny. Now why I am telling you all this? Because I finally managed the other one on the 6th of April, this is such a relief. I've been hunting this since last September and finally got to play Rift Apart. I waited nearly a full year to get my hands on the latest Ratchet and Clank title. The last time I waited this long to play a Ratchet game was back in 2007, when Tools came out and had to wait until Christmas of 2009 to play it. I've been a lifelong fan of the Ratchet and Clank series. I came out to this miserable world in 2002, the same year the first game got released. And ever since then I played all of the Ratchet games, not counting the mobile game or the weird Flash game.
Better not let Ratchet see this one.
Rift Apart was such a treat to a fan like me. It's probably the strongest Ratchet game to the date. Before heading to my talks about the game itself, I want to share my personal story of how I managed to get the console, because it's quite a funny story. If you're more interested in hearing my talks on the game itself, then skip to this time frame. I was growing so frustrated of constantly failing to get the console and not being able to play Rift. I tried to quell my constant urge by playing the earlier games. I kid you not, I think it made it worse because I fucking love my time with them. Many times I was going to buy from scalpers, but due to me always thinking twice before doing anything, I was never able to bring myself to do it. So knowing I needed some money for the console, I managed to get myself a part-time job. It was a really fun job, by the way. So one morning I was doing my business, my coworker called me and told me that there's a special sale in Gigantti where you can get the console with an extra controller and Gran Turismo 7 for 700 euros. While it was quite a steep price, I won't let that chance go away, so I finished my business and went ahead to get to my PC. But during that time my brother was visiting from his girlfriend and was playing RuneScape on my computer. I told him to get up so I go buy the console. But I kid you not, this dickhead told me no and refused to get up. He won't let me order it despite knowing I've been hunting it for so long. So defeated, I went to work very sad knowing I had missed out buying the console again. I will not get to play Rift Apart. But when I went to work, my coworker cheered me up by saying there was still a batch waiting. So again motivated, I tried spamming the order button and I managed to do it. It was such an awesome moment. One of my other workmates managed to get it too for his son, and I kid you not, his and my day was off to a good start. My brother has told me why he did it and has apologized for it, so no mean comments about him. Only I get to be a dick to him. When I first got the console, I was surprised how huge it is and kind of sticking out with its weird and wide shape. But that's for a reason, because it's really quiet. This is appreciated because PS4 was rather loud. I tried out Ratchet PS4 first because I didn't have the physical copy of Rift yet. Then I tried out Astro's Playroom, which is quite a fun tech demo. Now we finally get to the actual game. At my first playthrough I was quite conflicted on whether I liked it or was I more underwhelmed by it. I wasn't sure if this will be my final Ratchet game that I'll play. It didn't help with half the game glitch, forcing me to replay the entire game again to get 100%. But after the third playthrough I fell in love with the game. It's so fucking satisfying. I honestly might think that this game tops the third game from my number 1 Ratchet game. It's so beautiful too, one of the best looking games I've ever seen. Every planet is so full of life and detail that you just can't wait to explore them. Especially if it's 60 frames per second and ray tracing enabled. Made this game even 10 times better. No more crappy 30 FPS and motion blur bullshit, just pure eye candy. But we are not here to cream over the graphics and frame rates. We are here for the gameplay. The gameplay has been refined to its absolute best in this game. Some people might find it disappointing the gameplay hasn't changed since the second game, but like, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. The shooting is so damn satisfying with the DualSense controller. It's almost like your hands get this sweet massage with different vibrations, and the adaptive trigger is honestly my favorite gimmick. When firing a weapon you can just feel the resistance, which also affects how you use it, like for example pulling the trigger halfway choose one barrel from the shotgun, but when you pull it full, shoots both barrels, and once that levels up, it's full barrels, then 4 full barrels, which is pretty awesome. I was honestly blown away with how fast the game loads the levels with the SSD. There's literally no downtime, and when you get thrown from one level to another during combat, it's really cool. My favorite weapon has to be the Black Hole Storm, because at last we get a Shenkai type weapon, and this thing fucking slaps. We get like 20 weapons, 21 if we count the Combustor cameo, and 5 of the weapons returned from previous games. I kid you not, I had the biggest screen when in challenge mode they gave me the option to purchase the bouncer. And this weapon might as well be the best weapon because it shreds enemies and bosses. Might I also add that the top here sprinkler weapon makes enemies take more damage, so combining it with the bouncer will basically mean the only thing left is dust and bushes. The weapons are quite fun to use even though they're a bit more tame this time around. What was pretty lame was that most of the weapons' final form revolved around exploding instead of offering anything more interesting ideas. We also have a rare Retanium system returning, which you know is fine. It's just kinda poorly handled in this game because it takes like 2 times more rare Retanium to upgrade all weapons, and the functionality of the weapon really depends on these upgrades. Because weapons like the Cold Snap is really useless at start, but once fully upgraded becomes an absolute beast. I would like to see this system ditch altogether and replace with weapon mods instead, like in Doom Eternal and a Cracking Times Constructor mods. I want to real quick mention that the Bomb Gloves is an absolute beast. In previous games it only had like 10 to 12 max upgraded ammo. This time it's 28 and dealing max damage if it is a direct hit, and faster fire rate makes it surprisingly one of the more powerful starter weapons. The pistol is possibly one of the fastest fire weapons in the entire series outside of modded dual wipers. Ricochet is one of my favorite new weapon types. The shield shotgun is quite handy and the lightning rod is busted with its thumb mechanic. And the Rhino sucks. I know what's up with it, but it just flat out refuses to do any damage sometimes. It's so inconsistent that you're better off using the Warmonger or the Bouncer. It's still a really cool weapon though. It opens rifts to different dimensions, dropping items on enemies' heads and explodes. It sometimes drops other PlayStation characters like Sly Cooper and Jak and Daxter. Seeing them in current generation makes me really appreciate this game a lot more. The strafing gets improved, automatically activated when combat starts. We also get dimensional clank puzzles, which I really like. Not only are they fun and chill, you can skip them too if you just want to continue the game, so no more awkward Clank sections that slow down the pace. It's also visually very pleasing just getting Clank's possibilities to the end and him learning how to stop the dimensions from breaking apart. Although the monk who chats with Clank speaks a bit too much.
How are things going with Rivet?
Well enough. She hacked my brain and saw my memories.
Is that what you kids are doing these days? I'm so out of touch.
Now, the hacking glitch sections. I don't really like them. They're a bit too basic and confusing for my taste. Take a bit too long and the little bot, glitch, will stop screaming, which just makes me more glad I also have an option to skip this as well. The enemy variety is very lacking. Most of the enemies are taken straight from the PS4 remake and there's just lack of new foes to fight. I would have really liked to see more variations of the Nefarious troopers and especially goons for less, with there only being regular goon, flying goon and Vroom goon. There are a lot of mini bosses which are fun to fight but get repeated too many times. I would have preferred less mini bosses and actual bosses. Emperor Nefarious is literally a copy-pasted boss fight from Dr. Nefarious, which baffles me a lot because they had like 3 years to do all of this and they chose the lazy road. It's still one of the better final bosses from the series, but I would have wished to see him getting his own patterns. Now what isn't lazy is the pocket dimensions. I was quite mind blown when I first encountered one. Just letting me instantly go to a different place without any loading screen was honestly impressive. The pocket dimensions are very fun platforming challenges which offer armor pieces which give you passive bonuses, so you don't need to wear any armor if you don't want to. It's nice to see this armor system that was introduced in Size Matters in a better game. Plus, you can even switch the colors of the armors to fit you personally. I like to use the orange for Ratchet and yellow for Rivet. If you still decide to wear the Ranger armor, I do not want to be friends with you, but if you wear Carbonox, you're a cool guy and I won't mind hanging out with you. But you know what would happen as cool as Carbonox? The Gladiator armor. Yeah, imagine what it would have looked like in modern graphics. It would have been so badass. I would like to talk about more of the weapons, different gameplay styles and enemies, but there are other people who have explained it better than I have, so let's move on to the new mobility tools. With the introduction of more mobility options, it's almost like Doom Eternal but with funny aliens. While you can still dodge projectiles with strafe jumping, it will not help you dodge all the incoming attacks this time around. The enemies are more aggressive than in prior games and Phantom Dash is an excellent dodge ability. With it, you pace out of existence temporarily, allowing you to go through the enemies and projectiles. You can't shoot while it's in effect, you can't just seize your way out of a fight. While I played this first time around, I learned real fast that if I wanted to succeed, I must learn when to dash out of a harm's way and give some punishment in return. It's also a very good mobility tool to use in platforming and a good replacement to the long staple feature of Clank. Helipack. Now the first thing I was surprised by was that Clank's helipack has been reduced to only the glide. At first I was bummed out that they removed the long and high jump features from pretty much every game, but then I remembered. I barely use high jump outside of doing out of bounds stuff, and the long jump has sucked its tools because you can't spam it anymore, it will just literally make you move slower. And Phantom Dash is also so much better because you can use it also in mid-air, making platforming easier. The other replacement is Sprint, which is very handy during the early game. We also got wall running, which is just awesome. Wall running is really cool, they just add more to the platforming and grind really, which is appreciated. We also have Reef Tethering, which you can use during combat or in platforming, but honestly after getting Dash I rarely use them. They're cool though. Speed alrighty, which is neat, and Flying Lizardfish sucks with its baffling right analog stick controls. Hurl Shot, which is cool, but it isn't used in any interesting ways other than progressing the main path, and is used only once in exploration. And we get the glorious return of hover boots. These things are the best aspect of this game. You can achieve crazy speed with these boots, and with the levels being big, having these boots make you really appreciate them. And use them often because they are just so fun. It's fun to break some parts of the levels with the speed you can achieve with them. And what's really important too is the levels are fun to blast through with the boots. I mentioned earlier that the levels are huge, and that's not joking. Usually in previous games levels took around 10 to 15 minutes a beat. Now the levels are twice as long, taking 30 minutes. And surprisingly they don't overstay their welcome with their excellent level design. The levels are just so engaging with their style, fun combat sections and platforming. The opening level must be my favorite after tools, with you first starting a parade, then trying to reach Nefarious while dimensions are starting to collapse around you, then jumping between dimensions when Nefarious tries to switch to a different reality. And I just love this set piece so much, it's so exciting and set up the game stakes real well. There are 10 levels, but because they're long and you return to some of them, I'd say that is fine. Nefarious City is just gorgeous with their neon colors. Blizar Prime has to be the best level in the entire game with the dimension swapping gimmick. You first arrive on the shattered planet only to switch between dimensions where the planet is still intact and the broken planet, trying to progress through the level and figure out what happened to your Blizar. Cordelion is my personal favorite with the spooky theme and needed to swap dimensions too, and an underwater magneboot section which is really cool and nice change from the standard water parts. This game uses some level design from tools, which is kind of awesome to see 2 consoles later. Like Ardolis is pretty much ripped straight from tools with some new added sections which make it just an awesome level. Even Torrent 4 makes a return from crack. The arena is not really my favorite, it has like 5 challenges per cup and most of them aren't that engaging, especially with the Enforcer challenge being the hardest one, and that's in the bronze cup. But the launch is filled to the brim with life. On that note, one of the best aspects of this game is the levels don't feel empty. They have entities inhabiting the space, like monks and these bull-like creatures in Savali, bullards in Torrent 4 and miners in Blizar Prime. But what complements a good level is good music. Believe it or not, this soundtrack is actually really good. It isn't as catchy as the old soundtrack, but it fits the game perfectly. Mark Mothersbaugh and Wataru Hokoyama really did a great job on this one. It's refreshing to hear something more unique after the soundtrack kind of sucking since crack. Some track sounds a bit too generic for my taste, but when there is a unique track, it creates one of the most memorable moments in the game. Just remember the lower sound effects and dialogue so you can hear them better. I'll now play a few tracks, but wanna talk a bit more about those later. Now as much as I enjoy this host, I can't help but imagine what it falls on like if it was made in David's style. And there's one channel who has tried to emulate this style named Nuwe. His renditions are really good and catchy that I find it baffling how it hasn't gotten that much attraction. He has also made other fan-made tracks and some stereo remakes from the first game. I'll play his riff tracks on live gameplay to see if it will change the mood.
Something about fractured spines?
Oh, dear.
Smooth.
They keep coming. Wisdom. I may have an idea.
I am broken!
So yeah, I think the music fits quite well, but seeing they rather have cinematic score in their games, it's quite possible that we will never hear another David's music in Ratchet games. And finally, we gotta talk about the story. I am quite mixed on the story. When you don't think about it too hard, it's quite good. I really like Ratchet's dimensional counterpart, Rivet, because she's cute, headstrong, quick to take action and has fluffs compared to modern female characters. We also have Clank's counterpart, Kit, who quickly became my favorite character from this game. She's also a cute and surprisingly deep character. We also have our OG duo, which really complement these newcomers, especially Clank. We also get Dr. Nefarious, to which I want to say that I am so done with him at this point. It was cool when he returned in Crack, but at this point he's just insufferable. His character isn't as funny because for some reason they won't bring Lawrence back. He was loyal yet done with his boss's shit, and whenever Nefarious will freak out and he gets to slap him, that was funny and I just missed that. We then have Emperor Nefarious, who isn't the best villain but gets the job done well and is voiced by the same guy who did Medic.
Are we done having fun? Come on! Give it up for Rivet and her first victory!
Hello, Fräuleins! Would you like a second opinion? You are all so ugly!
Here is honestly the best side character and I won't mind him returning in the future game. Just listen to him speak.
Halt my hearties! Our command ship is lost! Destroy it now! We'll eat the expenses! Are ye sure?
I was right that Phantom is good and he's a cool character. Captain Quantum is like Quark but a pirate. It's quite a shame that Quark didn't appear more than a handful of times in the story. But seeing his voice actor has medical issues, I am fine with it because the new voice actor doesn't sound right.
Yes! Folks, we have a momentous day in store for you. Starting with me.
I have goosebumps.
So, about the story. Ratchet is nervous about having a parade about him and Clank despite them not doing anything heroic in years. Clank assures him and so they get on. They get attacked and when Clank thanks him for being a good friend and reveals the newly fixed Dimensionator, Nefarious appears and starts some shit. Ratchet, not really being in the mood, decides to shoot the Dimensionator and then dimensions start collapsing. You blast him some and he then teleports you to an alternate dimension where Nefarious is always victorious. Ratchet is about to smack the shit out of Nefarious until Clank warns about the Dimensionator exploding. Clank gets fucked up by the explosion, loses his arm and is left crippled, who is then found by Rivet. Nefarious then picks up this dimension's spot as the new Emperor. Ratchet then tries to get off the planet to find Clank. It's so great that they took their criticism to heart and made the animation quality just top notch. Not a single Ratchet game has had this type of great animation instead of being lifeless cardboard cutouts like in PS4. Rivet is first suspicious of Clank and when she checks his brain she is convinced he is right. Clank during the game feels a lot of guilt for causing all dimensions to start collapsing and tries to fix his mistakes during the game. He learns a lot about dimensional anomalies from Gary, a monk from Savali who is also the plumber's son. Ratchet meanwhile tries to find Clank, gets in contact with him and then along the way finds Kit. She isn't sure about teaming up first, but with Ratchet's experience with Clank, he knows just the right voice to make her team up with him. When Nefarious troops are about to destroy the archives, she reveals that she's a warbot and wrecks some shit and almost shoots Ratchet before realizing what she's about to do and stops. She feels saddened about what she was about to do, but Ratchet cheers and comforts her, so she decides to team up with Ratchet to save the dimensions. Rivet is like Ratchet but much more cautious around robots because she lost her arm to a warbot and her fighting the Emperor himself and his troops. Meanwhile, Kit is depressed about her past being a weapon to the Emperor and try to kill a rebel before choosing to exile herself to Savali. Are you noticing a pattern? Kit was the one who blew Rivet's arm off, and when Rivet eventually learns the truth, she's obviously mad at her, but Kit feels a lot of regret for causing her harm in the past. This is a very interesting origin story. Rivet is like the first game's Ratchet. Doing her missions, she has to improvise a lot. Her and Clank's interactions are one of my favorites.
Are you always suspicious that anyone you meet worked for Emperor Nefarious?
Pretty much everyone I meet does work for Emperor Nefarious.
Ah, a fair point.
Ratchet, meanwhile, being more experienced, doesn't have much issues with his missions with Kit. Clank gets a good character arc from causing dimensions to collapse. He doesn't wallow in self-pity or blame anyone else. He decides to take things up to his own hand and fix the problem he caused. Despite him not being too present in the gameplay, he's so active in the story. He also swears. Ratchet, on the other hand, is probably why I felt very mixed by the story. He has nothing interesting to say for the most part and he's very dull. He isn't anymore the same sarcastic tokai he used to be. I'd say the only parts when you go feel something else from him is when he talks about his fears of meeting other Lombaxes.
How are you not afraid of the future? With all of its unknowns.
I do get, well, you asked me on Savali if I wanted to find my family. For a long time, I did. I mean, I really did. But the closer I got to doing that, what if they're not what I expected? What if I'm not what they expected?
He lacks anything interesting traits and kind of takes a back seat for Rivet. The most he does is bring Kit's self-esteem up and bring out her more bright side. It doesn't help that for some reason he sounds weird in this game.
A little rusty, but not too bad. Security's everywhere. We gotta get out of here. This place looks like bad news. Better keep our eyes peeled, Clank.
Speaking of voice acting, this is the first mainline Ratchet game which allows you to play with English dub and with translated text, which I highly appreciate because the English voice acting is just amazing outside of Ratchet.
You okay, Bolts?
You came after me. Thank you.
Oh, sorry. Rivet, this is...
Kit, I have been looking forward to meeting you.
And meanwhile the Finnish dub is... let's just say it's not on the same page. It's very weird because the Finnish voice acting has been really good in previous titles. Good thing they at least give me the option to have English dub.
Onneksi ei tehdä mitään sankarillista, ellei hymyä ja vilkuttamista lasketa.
Let's continue the story. So they then fix the Dimensionator, Dr. Nefarious turns up and takes it from them, then the real Emperor appears and you know he's threatening from the music and the way he moves.
Wow! What a battle!
They then mess around a bit, trying to find Captain Quantum and stopping Emperor Nefarious from destroying Sargasso. They then return to Savali to stop Emperor from acquiring the dimensional map, and while everything fails, Kit makes the latch-ditch effort to stop him and reveals she was the one who fucked Rivet's arm up. Rivet rescues everyone from Sordun prison and tries to talk with Kit, but she decides she's better off alone so she can't hurt anyone anymore. And that makes Rivet angry, so she leaves her. Ratchet tries to reason with Rivet, causing both of them to lash out at each other, and instead of a game just having balls for characters to have more conflict, They both just apologize. Way to go, Insomniac. It sure is great how they handled this conflict. The Emperor is about to invade Ratchet's dimension, and so we get this Avengers style meetup of characters I don't really care for. Like, yeah, it's cool we team up with the enemies we've been fighting the entire game and the other side characters, but I just don't care. Let this be more personal with Ratchet and Rivet. The final level is pretty neat. We play first as Ratchet, who needs to take down the Emperor's mech, and then Rivet, who takes down the Emperor himself. And at the final fight, Kid appears back and she's all like, I won't be a pussy anymore, and starts blasting some baddies. Then Rivet fucks Emperor up and he gets dragged to Brazil, and we get this very pixel-like ending, which just feels too syrupy. It's cool how everyone gets along and all, but it's just how it's done feels too forced. Rivet apologizes for getting angry at Kid and they team up, and we get a tease for the next game. Then the end credits are just full on Kid's movie style. I really don't like it. It's too cute for my taste, and this is coming from a person who likes cute stuff. Like Osana Reimu's style is my favorite because it's really cute. Now, like I mentioned earlier, the story is the biggest reason why I felt so conflicted. To me, the story didn't have enough courage to tackle some serious issues, and everything just felt a bit too one-sided. Everyone made some jokes, but when it came time for a conflict, it just funded it over like nothing happened.
I am not a good partner.
Well, maybe you could be. If you'd stopped to help me that night instead of running away, things could have been different. Or if you just told the truth, maybe...
Why do none of you understand? I am broken. I will always be broken.
Fine. Go hide.
You were right. I cannot run away anymore.
Plus the story is pretty much like Tools, but without the dumb diaper baby. The other offenders to my conflict were Morts. They're a replacement to the Cursus, which is explained in a very hilarious fashion.
The Gelatonium outpost once belonged to the Kurchu tribe, but they were wiped out when they accidentally misspelled the Emperor's name on their tax returns.
But they're just too nice. They were like, ooh Rivet, you're so awesome and the bestest, thank you for being such a good person. The overall writing was very mediocre. Everyone is being subjugated by an evil dictator and everyone is like, this is fine, and everyone just thanks all the time. Video Game Donkey really said it best. It's like Cars 2 of video games. Plus it doesn't help when nobody knows when to shut up.
Nefarious is just up ahead. You guys distract him unless we try to grab the dimension.
You hear that, pal? Let's take out some snipers. Rivet, how's it looking up there?
Not great, but I'm with...
There is one more sniper.
We got you covered. Hurry and get that Dimensionator.
Alright, looks like the sky's clear of snipers. Let's move.
At first I was worried this style of writing was only limited to this game, but it's overall issue with Insomniac currently. When I played Miles Morales, that game's dialogue was quite terrible too. But I will stay optimistic because at least they wrote this game better than the remake and made two excellent characters. Hopefully in the next game the writing will be improved. Now let's wrap this up. That's my experience with Rift Apart. I'm quite happy that I got to experience the game. Don't let my final criticism sound like I hate the game. I really adore Rift. It's honestly my favorite in a long time and I always enjoy going back to it. I was about to stop following the series after this, but after replaying Rift Apart a few times and watching this 2-hour long video about the game's strengths and weaknesses made me love this title even more. It was first like with Doom Eternal, not really sure if I liked it as much as I did 2016, but after mastering the combat, I fell in love with the game. Now I have problems going to the earlier games just because I am so used to the improvements made in Rift. It's just so full of charm and little details, and if Insomniac will fix their issue with storytelling and repetition, I will believe they will become the best game development studio there is. I didn't make the same mistake like with PS4 when I only bought the system for the remake and barely got any games for it later. I have played so many other games alongside Rift Apart, which has enforced its standing as my favorite game in my library, and I will trade that away. Unless Live 5 happens, then this game might have some heavy competition. I am so happy that this series again has a strong future ahead. I am curious how Insomniac will make the next game after hinting they will finally go to the Lombax dimension. I just hope they make the game before PS6 so I don't need to stress about being able to play it. Thank you all for watching and have a nice day.